The oil slump continues. Oil prices dropped to a 5-year low, and since midsummer, prices have dropped 38%. And that has consequences for Canadian oil companies. I'm joined by the Globe's Jeffrey Jones, who is normally based in Calgary, where he covers the oil patch. He's here in Toronto this week. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Hi, Affan.
How are Canadian companies handling this drop in price?
Well, it's looking like they're finally deciding to batten down the hatches when it comes to their spending and when it comes to their operations. When you look at Precision Drilling, for instance, Canada's largest drilling contractor, they are currently in the process of building 16 drilling rigs. And they said today that they're going to halt their rig building after this current tranche is finished, and they've also decided to cut capital spending by quite a lot.
So we're talking about rigs. What's another piece of evidence that tells us, okay, that the oil companies are pulling back?
Well, let's look at some of the independents. I mean, we've got Trilogy Energy, which is a Canadian oil and gas producer, cut its spending today. And while it did that, it also said the current environment is forcing it to also cut its dividend completely, and its stock has been hammered as a result. And another one today that announced big spending cuts is a Canadian-based international producer called Vermilion Energy, and they're cutting spending as well.
So is this affecting Canadian companies worse than perhaps other global oil companies?
Well, actually, it looks like a bit of an international contagion.
Right.
I mean, we saw this morning as well, one of the largest super majors, ConocoPhillips, said that they were going to cut their spending by 20%. Now, 20% in their case is $3 billion US, and some of the cuts they're making will be in Canada as well. Some of the larger, more well-known Canadian plays, such as the Duvernay and the Montney, are going to get a lot less spending from ConocoPhillips this year.
I remember when we talked about 6 weeks ago, you were talking about, the dark clouds over the oil patch in Canada, and I'm wondering, 6 weeks later, it's a different picture.
I think what you're going to see is more spending cuts, more reductions in dividends, and if this thing lasts quite a bit longer, you're also going to see some merger and acquisition activity kick up, as well as some of the ones that have deep pockets can scoop up some of the weaker players.
Well, that's what I was curious about, was who is most vulnerable in the Canadian oil patch, if these prices continue to drop?
If you take a look at companies that have the highest debt levels, they're the ones with the obligations, the ones that need their cash flow to keep on pumping along in order to make their obligations. Those are the ones that are obviously the most vulnerable. And you can see now, if you take a look at the ones that have been hit hardest on the TSX, they're all the ones with high debt.